This paper presents some of the novel concepts that deal with the state of the art of medical techniques. There it will be described several examples of how these techniques are currently applied in experimental ways. Like history, we must remember that Sentinel Dispensaries network called Medinet was initiated 2 years ago by the National Society of Family Medicine per General Medicine, and now it's managed by the National Center for Studies in Family Medicine. The goal of this network was to obtain data concerning GP's activity from our country. At the end of the year 2001 began effective registration of data. Every meeting between general practitioners and patients was registered on a PC, and some data were sent monthly to a central server via internet. The data were centralized, and it has begun partial statistical analysis on a 6-month period. We tried to make the smart plan for analysis, and we had many discussions, but finally we decided to follow 6 steps. First step was to establish the lot on which to make the study. We selected the registrations from 52 general practitioners. The second step was to concatenate the received databases. After every received database was verified, we concatenate these databases, resulting one unique database having 11 tables and containing data regarding reason for encounter, symptoms, diagnosis, dispensary procedures, referrals, episodes, and so on. The third step was to select the consultation and the patients from the established period of time for this study. There were selected all the consultation registered between November 1st, 2001 and April 30th, 2002, and all the patients on the GP's list from this period. The fourth step was the cleaning of the database for remove records that cannot be analyzed due to lack of some important information, lack of the data of birth of a patient, lack of identification code of a patient, and other. All these represented approximately 0.4% from the total number of records. These registration errors generally appears due to software modification, so some data recorded in previous version of Medins could not be used. The fifth step was to make the summary statistical analysis, was make a demographical analysis, age groups, sex, urban-rural distribution on GPs, and so on. On the sixth step, we make the descriptive analysis of the principal components of the consultations. Were analyzed the reasons for encounter, diagnosis, the top of all diagnosis, first contact diagnosis, the beginning of an episode, the final diagnosis, the last consultation from an episode, incidence and prevalence. We make also some complex statistical analysis, a detailed statistical analysis of episode of care, correlations between reasons for encounter and established diagnosis at the beginning of episode and at the end of episodes. Correlation between diagnosis and dispensary procedures, also the analysis of the episodes where the diagnosis was changed, the correlation between diagnosis and referrals to specialists, and finally statistical analysis grouped on systems, syndromes, age, urban-rural distribution, sex. All the databases collected from the 100 general practitioners are in Microsoft Access format, MBD. Those databases were concatenated to become one huge database containing patients and consultations data from all GPs. We needed a large time window to effectively process the data containing in the database. Original database collected from general practitioners has included data registered from the beginning of using Medins until present from the beginning of 2001. It was needed to filter all the data to remain just the useful data that was registered during this 6 months period. there were used complex SQL queries, resulted the table being analyzed with Microsoft Excel 2000, Microsoft Access 2000, EPI Info 6 and other statistical packages. When these software applications were helpless, we have developed some Visual Basic 6 applications for prepared database. First, tables from the unique database were pre-processed using SQL query facilities provided by Microsoft Access, obtaining the primary data that follow to be processed in the next steps. Then the information was imported as new tables in Microsoft Access or Microsoft Excel for the second processing step. The final processing stage is acquired through a Visual Basic application. The reason for using of that application is multiple facilities provided by Microsoft DAO, Data Access Object Engine. About the data analysis aspects, problem related to confidentiality of data were an aspect that make statistical analysis more difficult. For the unique identification of a patient, it was used 3 identifiers: code of GP, code of patient. This code is different from personal numerical code, and it not reveal any personal data of the patient. The code of GP, used together with patient code, shape a unique code. To retrace an episode, it was needed to connect every registered element of the consultation with patient data, so it were used 3 identifier for an episode: the GP code, the patient code, and the index of the consultation. About the codification systems, registered data were codified using more codification systems. The reason for encounter was codified using ICPC-2, International Classification of Primary Care. The reasons for encounter may be symptoms, diagnosis, requested procedures, and requested referrals. The symptoms were codified using ICPC-2. Diagnostics were double codified using ICPC-2 and ICD-10, International Classification of Disease. This double codification was performed directly by the GP in the moment of recording of diagnosis, starting from ICPC-2 code, then choosing the appropriate ICD-10 code. The dispensary procedures and referrals were codified using ICPC-2. An additional internal code was used because the same code, ICPC-2, is used for many procedures. Episodes of care were registered according to an original methodology that allowed to the software medins a later retracing of these episodes and detailed statistical analysis. Any element of a consultation may be connected to an episode and it get a unique identifier. An episode may be new, old, or assumed. Like results, here you could see the repartition on counties of the GPs included in this statistical analysis. Were included in study more than 100,000 patients. In figure 2 we could observe that the structures is slightly shifted to the third age. This fact could be interpreted as a sequel of the old model of education of general practitioners discriminated for adults and children. In the 6 months period, the 52 general practitioners have registered more than 26,000 consultations inside to 23,000 new episodes of care and more than 9,000 old episodes of care. Doctors registered more than 38,000 reasons for encounter, 41,000 diagnoses, and more than 58,000 dispensary procedures. Here you could see some tables for reason for encounter. The most frequent reason for encounter at the beginning of the episode, the percent from total number of episodes by ICPC check, procedures performed in dispensaries, procedures made in dispensary by ICPC chapters. Conclusion: The partial statistical analysis was performed in the purpose of preparation of data analysis during 1 year. This exercise was useful to avoid possible errors in the final analysis, helping us to establish the final plan of the statistical analysis. The database collected from the Sentinel dispensaries network offer large possibilities to analyze all elements of the medical consultation in family practice. A complete analysis could offer valid information for policymakers. The required workload for the final analysis during 1 year registration will be very considerable, being estimated from 6 to 10 months.